Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. It was I was rushing to pull some stuff together for everybody. Welcome to the third live stream of the day for the Law of Self-Defense. This is our Alec Baldwin Manslaughter trial, day 2 live summary. I'll try to be as concise as possible for all of you who couldn't watch the trial in real time with me today. We're going to do it, our summary of it right now. There were some hijinks today. Kerry Morrissey, prosecutor, brought out the knives again today. You got to be careful when you open up those cans when Kerry Morrissey is around. It might turn out that can is full of whoop ass. And that's pretty much what happened today. Let's see, pin to profile. Is that streaming? It is. And let me just check. Rumble. You never know with Rumble. And it looks like it is streaming. All right. So, in the interest of keeping this as concise as possible, let's see. So, to kind of just capture the day. So, here's what we're doing. Alec Baldwin, day 2 trial summary. Number of witnesses today. We're going to step through all of them. I captured an image yesterday of Alec in court when things were not going so well for him. And this was the image that I captured that I thought was representative of yesterday for Alec Baldwin. But today's a new day, right? Today is a new day. So this is what he looked like today. And it got worse. It got much, much worse. Much worse than this. So let's start. The first witness of the day was Marissa Popple. She had a direct questioning of Marissa by Kerry Morrissey yesterday. Marissa Popple is a crime scene technician, mostly took photographs, did collect a little bit of evidence, and sent some stuff off to the FBI lab. Really a low-level person in this investigation. But somehow the defense managed to spend 3.5 hours on cross-examination alone of Marissa Popple, one of the least important people in this investigation. It was really remarkable. That's her. That's the crime scene tech. By the way, the judge was true to form today. This was the judge. Judge Summer. Oh my gosh. She was so done with this trial today. But anyway, this was Marissa Popple. 3.5 hours of cross-examination. Most of it completely pointless. So, where's my little summary text? Here it is. So, cross-examination of Popple was done by Alex Spiro, who's been the defense lawyer, arguing in court all day yesterday and much of today. We did finally see a little bit of Luke Spiro, Luke Nikas, today. And we heard a little bit from Heather LeBlanc when there was some kerfuffle outside the hearing of the jury immediately after lunch. I'll get to that in a moment. He really came across as bullying this witness because, the defense doesn't really have much evidence to work with in terms of the legal merits of the case. Remember, the legal merits are manslaughter, right? These are the criminal charges. 2 alternative counts of manslaughter. One is misdemeanor, negligent handling of a firearm as a predicate for involuntary manslaughter. The other is failure to use due caution and circumspection in handling a gun. The second, and someone died, second predicate for involuntary manslaughter. The defense wants to talk about anything except the facts that underlie these claims. What are the facts that underlie these claims? That Alec Baldwin was holding what he knew to be a real gun in his hand, that he pointed it directly at Halyna Hutchins, that he cocked the hammer, that he pressed the trigger without ensuring there was no live ammo in the gun. And of course, there was live ammo in the gun. It discharged and it struck and killed Halyna Hutchins. Now, you may believe or not believe those facts, although most of them are really incontrovertible. But those are the material facts to this criminal charge. What does the defense want to talk about? None of those. The defense wants to talk about the ammo. Where did that live round come from? How did it get into the gun? Now, those are legitimate questions for police to investigate. There are other people who've been held accountable on some of those questions. Hannah Gutierrez was found guilty of criminal involuntary manslaughter because the live round got on the gun, and it was her job not to do that. And the overwhelming evidence is the live round was brought with her to the set. David Halls pled guilty to a misdemeanor, criminally negligent handling of a firearm, because he failed to detect the round in the gun before he called it cold and handed it to Alec Baldwin. So there are other bad things that happened here for which other people have been held responsible. But in this trial, on this charge for Alec Baldwin, where the bullet came from and how it got in the gun and why it wasn't detected before the gun was in Alec's hand is completely irrelevant to this criminal charge. It has literally nothing to do with it. So, of course, that's what the defense wants to talk about. They want to talk about the bullet. They want to talk about purported defects in the investigation. Why did it take a week to get a search warrant for the prop truck? Why did it take a month or 5 weeks to get a search warrant for the warehouse? When you searched the warehouse, did you really look, search every box in that warehouse for live ammo? Because that's primarily the reason they were there, was to search for live ammo. And it really came across ultimately as bullying of poor Marissa Poppel. I mean, she's just a crime scene tech. She's nobody important. And none of this matters. Again, it's not material where the bullet came from, how it got into the gun, or why it wasn't detected by people before it was put in Alec. So all this bullying for no real purpose. Then the big mistake by Alex Spiro, and he did something very similar with Officer LaFleur, the first state witness yesterday. He had this CAD report. CAD report is like a transcript of all the radio calls and computer calls, to a patrol car. And there were many references in the CAD report to accident. And one of the themes that the defense is trying to push to the jury here is, hey, this wasn't a crime. This was an accident. It's an innocent accident. Well, accident is a technical legal term of art that does not apply here. Accident requires that the actor literally has no fault, made no contribution to the error. This is not an accident. He pointed a gun, he cocked a hammer, he pressed a trigger, the gun discharged. He did a lot of things intentionally. But the defense is trying to conflate the colloquial use of the term accident as if it were the legal term of art, accident. So he's got this CAD report, and it says accident in lots of places. Well, yes, this was yesterday. When Carrie Morrissey got on redirect of her witness, and she took this CAD report up, and she said, this reference to accident, does that have anything to do with the shooting of Halyna Hutchins, or was it a different call? Nothing to do with Hutchins. This reference to accident, did that have anything to do with Hutchins? No. This reference to accident, did that have anything to do with Hutchins? No. And she must have gone through 20 of these over this multi-page CAD report. And it just made the defense look out like liars, like they were simply attempting to deliberately deceive the jury. It was terrible. Well, much the same happened today. So one of the things that Marissa Poppel collected, or took photographs of at least, was kind of a script guideline. Scene 128, this is supposed to happen. Scene 158, that's supposed to happen. And in a number of these, it said, cock the hammer. The character, Baldwin's character, cocks the hammer, slowly cocks the hammer. First of all, Spiro was trying to say, well, if the script says cock the hammer and doesn't say press the trigger, that means that our client cocked the hammer and did not press the trigger. Well, one doesn't follow from the other, right? The script might say, don't, not mention the trigger. It doesn't mean in real life he didn't touch the trigger. We have plenty of evidence that he pressed the trigger when he wasn't supposed to. So one doesn't follow the other. But most important, the moment in which Alec Baldwin pointed that real gun, what he knew to be a real gun, at Halyna Hutchins and cocked the hammer and pressed the trigger, it wasn't a scene. So the scene scripts have nothing to do with that event. It was a blocking event. So whatever this script document might have said about scenes was completely irrelevant. And so every time that Alex Spiro had mentioned, hey, it just says cock the hammer, it doesn't say press the trigger, does it? And here, this scene just says cock the hammer, it doesn't say press the trigger. So Carrie Morrissey, again, on redirect, went through every one of those examples and had the witness testify that, well, none of those had anything to do with the shooting of Halyna Hutchins. Again, it looks like the defense is just outright lying to the jury. Very bad day. Very damaging to Spiro. There is Spiro. So this went on for hours, this kind of nonsense. And then we had a lunch break. And when we came back from lunch, things went really bad for the defense. We got back early, and the jury was still not in the courtroom because Carrie Morrissey had a lot of evidence, a bunch of evidence that she wanted the judge to suddenly admit into the trial. That was very damaging to Baldwin. And she got a lot of it in. Now, not all of it. Some of it, the judge just said, no, I still don't want to let that in. But the key things that got in were, part of it was demeanor evidence. Part of which was when Baldwin went to the police station the day of the shooting to be questioned by Corporal Alexander Hancock, Detective Alexander Hancock at the time, and another detective. There was a period of time when he was in the interrogation room and the detectives weren't there. So he was on his phone talking to his family and stuff. And he was like, yeah, why don't you just still come out for our planned vacation? You know, they'll handle all this stuff, but we won't get our money back for the flight. So we may as well just enjoy the vacation. This is after he didn't know Halyna Hutchins was dead at that point, but he knew Joel Souza had been shot. And he knew Halyna Hutchins was shot bad enough that she was flown out in a helicopter. And now he's talking to his family about, yeah, let's continue our vacation. And this had been excluded by the judge previously. She'd said, I'm not going to let that in. It's like character evidence. But now Carrie Morrissey said, you know what? In their opening statement, the prosecution spent a lot of time talking about how shocked and alarmed Baldwin was when this gun went off, when Halyna Hutchins was shot. So they opened the door to this demeanor evidence. So now the prosecution is going to get to play that phone conversation, that apparently uncaring, cold-hearted phone conversation of Alec Baldwin. Not all of it, but enough to get the point across. The other big thing that Carrie got in was she had wanted to admit evidence from Brian Carpenter about how guns on a movie set could be dangerous even without a live round. Blanks could kill. Even if all a gun had in it was blanks, they could kill. And the defense objected, and the judge in the pretrial hearing said, yeah, I'm not going to allow that in. Because this case is really about a live bullet. Everything you talked about in front of the grand jury to get this indictment was about a live bullet. What killed her was a live bullet. Blanks are not relevant. So I'm not going to allow witness Brian Carpenter to talk about how blanks are dangerous. But today, Carrie Morrissey says, well, you know, Alec Baldwin himself knew that blanks could kill. He told the detectives that in his interrogation. That even just blanks could cause a cerebral hemorrhage and kill someone. So he knew even blanks could be lethal. And now I want to let that in. And the defense said, no, Judge, you already ruled on this. You said they couldn't talk about this. This was part of the in limine motion. And Carrie Morrissey said, well, no, the in limine motion was whether about one of our witnesses could talk about blanks being dangerous. But now we're talking about Alec Baldwin's actual personal knowledge that blanks could be dangerous. And the judge said, yeah, that can come in. And there was some other stuff, less important. And the defense objected. And the judge said, you know what? With this one, with the blanks, the defense really didn't like it. It's really bad for Baldwin. That now they're going to play this recording of him telling the police that, you know, he knows the guns are dangerous. Even if all they have is a blank, they can kill. And the defense really objected, and the judge said, well, you should have paid better attention to my ruling. This is what happens when you make me rush everything at the end and you're unable to pay attention. My ruling was specific to witness testimony, not Alec Baldwin's personal knowledge. Bad for the defense. And then they complained about some other stuff. They wanted to continue to argue, and the judge said, I'm done talking about this. This is what you get for rushing all those motions 2 days before trial. That's on you. That's on you. You delayed all this, defense. So I'm done talking about it. You have my ruling. It's over. So she's holding the defense accountable. And make no mistake, I'm convinced part of the judge's reaction in this way was because the defense had just spent 2.5 hours cross-interrogating one unimportant witness. The state has like 44 witnesses on its list. So even if they only do a quarter of those, 10, The state can't get through them in 8 days if this is going to be the defense pace of cross-examination. So very, very bad post-lunch meeting for the defense. Most remarkable, perhaps, was after Carrie Morrissey's redirect of Popple, when she did this whole script thing, made Alex Spiro look like a liar. I had this graphic up. Alex Spiro is really disappointing me. I mean, if you're going to be a partner at Quinn Emanuel, which is a top 50 law firm, you don't get there being a dummy. But he's, I got to say, he's underperforming, in my view. Even given the grace that he doesn't have a lot to work with. He's only got cow dung to work with. But you can fail with style. You don't have to fail and look like you're failing. No need for that. So then when after this post-lunch out of the jury's hearing meeting where Carrie Morrissey is getting this damaging evidence admitted in after all, suddenly defendant Alec Baldwin decided he didn't want to be there anymore. They had waited for him to come back so they could, it's a critical phase of the trial. The defendant has a right to be there. Carrie Morrissey wanted him there. They waited for him to come back to have all these discussions, these damaging discussions. And suddenly Alec Baldwin just stands up and walks out of the room. I'll play a little clip here. And then when he comes back a few minutes later, and I cut out the intervening period, but when he comes back a few minutes later, he's staggering in like an old man, like a president of the United States. Check it out.
Well, it all goes, I think we've got like three or four pages, so I think it all kind of goes together. Hang on just a second.
Carrie Morrissey was digging a grave here and had been for about an hour. A grave for Alec Baldwin, a legal grave.
Okay, so this part, I mean, the part at the bottom of 18, it puts in context the part at the top of 19, and this goes directly to Mr. Baldwin's motivation to lie about pulling the trigger of the gun. I'm 63 years old with 6 kids. I can't rely on luck anymore.
There he goes.
He's talking
his
about
lawyers
his
don't know why
career,
he's leaving.
And that
Where's our client going? We got a runaway client.
This goes exactly to his motivation.
And that's the court clerk. He's like, yeah, Judge, the defendant just walked out of the room. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. If a non-famous defendant might have been tackled by the bailiff, you don't get just to walk out. So they go up to the bench, and then there's a pause, and a few minutes later, Alec Baldwin comes back in, and he looks terrible. He comes in right after Marissa Popple comes back in to continue cross. There he is. He's got a cup of coffee or vodka or who knows. Look at him. Oh my God, he looks like he's ready for the presidential debate.
No, I know. He hasn't passed. We're asking two different questions.
Somebody's saying he had to go to the bathroom. Well, then you pause the proceedings. You tell your lawyer, and your lawyer alerts the judge. You don't just walk out. And he didn't walk in looking very good. So then we had more cross-examination of Marissa Popple, and then we had the redirect of Marissa Popple that I indicated was very damaging. And then we had a really interesting witness. We had this guy, Alexandro Pieta, the owner of the Pieta factory that makes the revolver. And he was a great witness. Very obviously well-informed about the quality control, the metallurgy, the safety checks, the proofing by an independent agency. He was great. Couldn't lay a hand on him. The defense never tried to lay a hand on him. This direct examination of him was done by Erlinda Johnson, the co-prosecutor. She did a great job. Very solid, very competent, expert. And the only defense counter, and this was the first time we saw Luke Nikas. Where is Luke? Here he is. Luke did the cross-examination of Pieta, and really his only question was, but you don't know what might have happened to the gun after it left your control, right? Because it went from the factory in Italy to EMF, the importer in the US, which is also owned by Pieta. And then it was used at various industry shows like SHOT Show as a display piece. Once the gun left your control, you don't know what might have happened to it. And Pieta said, yeah, once the gun left my control, I have no idea what happened to it. So the state will be bringing in, it went from EMF, then it went to, I think it went right from there to PDQ, right? To PDQ, to Seth Kenney. Just a month or so before the Rush shooting, like in September 2021. So they couldn't really, the defense couldn't really do anything to Pieta, utterly convincing as a witness that the gun was in perfect operating order, completely safe as a firearm can be of that type when it left the factory. Then we had a relatively unimportant witness, this guy, Justin Neal. Justin Neal is really part of Pieta. He works for the importer, which is owned by Pieta. So he's the guy who was involved in selling the gun to Seth Kenney. The defense didn't have one question on cross for this guy. There you go. And then we got to near the end of the day, the last hour or so, we got to Corporal Alexandra Hancock. She was the lead detective on this case. Well, and the Hannah Gutierrez on the shooting event. Not initially, not for the first couple weeks, but after a couple weeks, she was the lead on this case. And she just started doing direct. And frankly, there wasn't much notable about the direct. She's just talking about the investigation and all the stuff we've heard before. Nothing's notable happening. The prosecutors are just getting this evidence into the record as they need to get it in there. I expect we'll see more heat when we see her on cross-examination, but she was not subject to cross today. So the court recessed while we were still doing, Carrie Morrissey was still doing direct questioning of Alexandra Hancock. And of course, Carrie questioning her own witness makes everything seem very reasonable. So I do have some interesting stuff to say about the jury instructions, but I think I'm going to do that in the morning when I'm a little more not tired, because both the state and the defense have proposed jury instructions to the court, and they're quite different from each other. Spoiler, the state jury instructions are very consistent with the New Mexico standard jury instructions for involuntary manslaughter, and the defense jury instructions are very different from the standard instructions, but we'll step through those in the morning. For right now, let me take a look at, so overall, a very bad day for the defense, especially that post-lunch addition of new damaging, really very damaging evidence for Baldwin. All right, so let me take a look at questions from Law Self-Defense membership. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to pose a question, that's fine, but it needs to be a $10 super chat, and on Rumble, the same. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, if you don't want to do a $10 super chat, it would be great if you could at least give a thumbs up and subscribe. That would be awesome. And I should mention, again, this Sunday, I'll be doing a weekend recap, week one of the trial, a recap of the trial. I'll go over the key moments. We'll have some video clips, evaluate the legal arguments, where the parties stand at that point. And I'll also have my friend Adam Baldwin join the show. Adam, of course, from Full Metal Jacket, The Patriot, Independence Day, Wyatt Earp, Firefly, and the Serenity movie from Firefly, Chuck, The Last Ship. I'm sure many of you know Adam, been a good friend of mine for a long time. And of course, he's got decades of experience in Hollywood movies and TV shows handling real guns on set. So he's going to share that experience, expertise, insight with us. And we'll have a few laughs too. Adam's just a great guy to hang out with. And we'll do some Q&A. If you have questions for Adam, I'll be glad to pose those to him. And after that, we're going to give away a $10,000 prize. $10,000 prize, including a very special mystery gift that I don't want to talk about on social media because I don't want to get in trouble. You never know what'll get you in trouble on here. But here's the catch. This trial recap will not be on social media because I want the freedom to talk about whatever I want to talk about with whatever words I want and to offer whatever prizes I want and not get in trouble with YouTube or Rumble or Twitter. So this is set up as a webinar. You have to register for the webinar. It's 100% free. Doesn't cost a penny. But because we're doing it as a webinar off the social media platforms, you do have to register. lawselfdefense.com/trial recap is where you want to go, or I guess you can use this QR code here on the screen. Again, it doesn't cost a penny, so don't hesitate. And there are only 500 seats, 500 seats. And once they're gone, they're gone. That's what our webinar platform can support. So if you want to participate on Sunday, I think it's going to be great fun. lawofselfdefense.com/trial recap is what you want to do. All right, so let's look to some questions. Law of Self-Defense member Eric says, Safety Bulletin number 1.1 seems to include a provision for allowing an actor to point a gun directly at another actor only if absolutely necessary after taking precautions and on camera. Do you think the defense will try to argue Baldwin's conduct falls into this? Well, let's take a look. Shall we? Refrain from pointing a firearm at anyone, including yourself. If it is absolutely necessary to do so on camera, consult the property master or, in his or her absence, the weapons handler or other appropriate personnel determined by the locality or the needs of the production. That means make it safe, right? That means take whatever steps are necessary to make sure you don't kill someone. Did that happen here? No. No. So that's the problem here. It also says never place your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. It doesn't say if absolutely necessary here. Right? The bottom line is this death did not need to happen. The gun did not need to be pointed directly at Halyna Hutchins. It was not absolutely necessary. He was not on camera. This was not a scene. So he did not need to point the gun at another human being and cock the hammer and press the trigger without absolutely ensuring that there was no live ammo in the gun. And he killed Halyna Hutchins as a result. Now, you may have heard today, Alec Baldwin's daughter was to have a small bit role in this movie. You think if the scene had called for someone to point a gun, a real gun, at his daughter, maybe Alec himself, and cock the hammer and press the trigger, he would not have personally made damn sure there was not a real bullet in that gun? Do you think if the scene had called for him to put the muzzle to his own head and cock the hammer and press the trigger, he would not have made damn sure there was not a live round in the gun? But when it came to Halyna Hutchins, it wasn't that important. That's the utter disregard for human life that underlies why this is involuntary manslaughter. And it would have taken moments. First of all, there didn't need to be any, even dummies or blanks in this gun. They weren't filming. So it would have taken moments to just take everything out of the gun. You spin the cylinder, pop, 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 pop. I think there were only 3 or 4 rounds in the gun. And then you can spin the cylinder and see every chamber's empty. And then you can point it at anybody you want. Utterly confident that a gun you personally confirmed has no rounds of any kind in it certainly cannot hurt anybody. But if you don't do that, you take the risk, knowing that you're pointing a real gun at another human being, cocking the hammer, and pulling the trigger. Eric says, is it ever acceptable for an actor to point a gun at another actor? If so, what does the situation look like? What are the safety precautions and who is responsible? The end of the day is you can do that if you don't kill them. Right? There are ways to do this without killing someone. Even with a real gun, you can do it. I could do it. I could do a Russian roulette scene with a real gun. But guess what? When that gun comes into my hand, I would make damn sure there's not a live round in the gun. And then I don't have to worry about it. I'll confess I would still be uncomfortable. I can't help it. Gun safety is hardwired into me. But logically, rationally, I would know that gun cannot possibly hurt me because I just looked and there's no live ammo in the gun and the gun has not left my hand. That's how you would do it. Or you would just use a genuine replica and then Photoshop whatever effects you needed in. And keep in mind that Alec Baldwin's not charged with a violation of SAG guidelines. He's charged with a violation of New Mexico law. And New Mexico law says it's involuntary manslaughter if you were either engaged in a misdemeanor underlying offense, negligent handling of a firearm in this case, or you were handling the firearm without due caution and circumspection. If you're going to point a live gun at someone, a real gun, you know it's a real gun, you cock the hammer, you pull the trigger while pointing the gun at another human, due care and circumspection means that you check to make sure there's no live ammo in the gun. It's practically an absolute liability offense. If someone gets killed by whatever you're doing, by definition, you didn't take due care and circumspection, unless you could make it out as a absolute genuine accident in the legal sense, that you had no contribution to the event, like if the set collapsed on you, for example. That's not what happened here. Nothing like that happened. There was no intervening cause between Alec Baldwin pointing the gun, cocking the hammer, pressing the trigger, and the charge discharging, the bullet discharging. Yeah, I mean, it can only be manslaughter if you kill someone, right? There's no manslaughter if you don't kill someone. I guess it could be reckless endangerment. It could be an assault if you put them in fear of harm. Of course, it depends on the factual context. Let's see. All these people can be liable, right? Hannah Gutierrez can be criminally liable for her failure to prevent live ammo from getting on the set or injecting herself live ammo into the set. David Halls can be criminally liable and took a plea for inadequately checking the gun for live ammo and nevertheless calling it a cold gun when he handed it to Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin can be liable for unnecessarily pointing a gun at a real person, cocking the hammer, and pulling the trigger without ensuring there's no live ammo in the gun. They can all be liable for reckless manslaughter. I mean, Halls took a plea, but he would have been prosecuted for reckless manslaughter if he hadn't taken the plea. They can all be liable for reckless manslaughter for their own form, variation of recklessness. Let's see. Again, all this could be done safely. Alec Baldwin could have done all of this. He could have pointed the gun at Halyna Hutchins. He could have cocked the hammer. He could have pulled the trigger, and it would all have been fine. If what? If he had ensured there was no live ammo in the gun when it came into his hand. He doesn't have to ensure that. The law doesn't say, there's no New Mexico statute that says Alec Baldwin has to make sure there's no live ammo in the gun. But if you don't do that and someone dies, they died because you intentionally incurred an unjustified risk of death or serious injury to another person. That's involuntary manslaughter. Why was Baldwin allowed to leave the courtroom without the court's permission? Well, he wasn't. I mean, a lot of defendants would have been tackled by the bailiff. It was just weird. But they know who he is. Where's he going to go? It's just obviously just bizarre behavior. But it wasn't like he was allowed. The court clerk in the back was looking at the judge like, "What do you want me to do? I could shoot him, I guess. Shoot him with a." I didn't know the gun was loaded, Your Honor. Why wasn't Baldwin read the riot act by the judge? Well, the judge probably would have told the lawyers, and the lawyers will talk to their client. Let's see. Sheepdog NVA says his lawyer immediately asked to approach the bench. He probably told the judge he would handle it. Yeah, I think so. And this judge would be inclined to let that, assuming it doesn't happen again, let that settle it. Let's see. All right, so those are all the member questions. Let's see if there's any super chats I need to address. Nope. And no Rumble rants. All right, folks. So tomorrow, court is supposed to start at where is that? A little later. 9:30 is when the jury was told to arrive at the courthouse. They've been arriving at 8:30, and I've been starting the live stream at 8. Now they're told to arrive at 9:30. I think I'll start tomorrow morning's live stream at 8:30. 8:30 to give me some time to go over the jury instructions with all of you, and of course work out the invariable little technical glitches that seem to happen from time to time. But then we'll all be fully prepared for the for the start of the trial proper, and we'll be informed about what the shenanigans the defense is trying to pick with these jury instructions. So don't forget, sign up for our recap on Sunday if you want to be there. It'll be great fun. lawofselfdefense.com/trial recap, 100% free. 100% free, but you need a seat. You need to be able to log in. So we need to be able to send you webinar credentials. It will not be streamed on social media. So it will not be on YouTube. It will not be on Rumble. It will not be on X. It will not even be streamed to Law Self-Defense members. If you're a Law Self-Defense member, I encourage you to grab a seat. If you're a member and you get locked out, if the seats get sold out, contact us and we'll, you know where, and we'll see what we can do to get you added regardless. So members will get preferential seating. But we want everyone to who wants to participate to be at the webinar itself. All right. So with that out of the way, I'll wrap this up now. lawselfdefense.com/trial recap for this weekend. And I will be back live streaming at 8:30 tomorrow morning. That's Friday morning, 8:30 Mountain Time. So 10:30 Eastern Time. Sorry. And we'll go over the jury instructions and see what the defense is up to there and be all prepared for trial proper to start and any shenanigans. By the way, I'm scheduling these shows ahead of time in expectation of when they'll start. But sometimes things start early. Like today, court wasn't supposed to start till 2. The judge told the jury when they broke for lunch, but they came back way early to do all this argument without the jury present about this new evidence that Kerry Morrissey wanted in. So I started the stream early. So just be aware, I'm kind of scheduling as I expect court to happen, but if court changes things, then I'll be starting streams earlier or ending them earlier or whatever the case may be. So just keep that in mind. All right, folks, until tomorrow morning, I'll just remind all of you that if you carry a gun, so you're hard to kill. That's why I carry a gun, so I'm hard to kill. So my family is hard to kill. Then you also owe it to yourself and your family to make sure you know the law, so you're hard to convict as well. Until tomorrow morning, I remain Attorney Andrew Branca for the Law of Self-Defense. Stay safe.